short little video on my career arc predictions so that you can go out and invest in some souvenirs for the exchanges if you haven't already done so. We're going to go through each position. We're going to start with starting pitchers, go through relievers, catchers, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, left field, center field, and right field. Hopefully you can take this with some intelligence and go out and invest in souvenirs if you feel that's necessary. And you can complete these missions when they come out either at the end of this week or at the end of the month, as SDS has stated. They haven't given us a for sure time when they're going to come out with these, but I'll show you some of the statistics on some of these guys. And the first player I want to talk about is Fergie Jenkins. I think he's going to be our new starting pitcher career arc, and they have him in the game under the mid-century groundbreakers rotation. He's a relief pitcher in the game right now, but he's a Hall of Famer who had a very long, successful career. His cards were very useful last year, and he had quite a few. He currently doesn't have any cards in this game, and his Cy Young season of 1971 included 30 complete games. So if that's part of his mission, that's going to take a long time to complete. And he had a ridiculous strikeout to walk ratio of 7.11 in that 1971 Cy Young season. This card would be welcomed in anybody's pitching staff, and I think he's going to tie into the Bob Gibson program. So his stats that they have in the game right now is, look at those stamina's 94. I think with the bump in Diamond Dynasty, it's going to be well over 100 because he had quite a few seasons where he pitched over 300 innings. His hits and his K per 9 should be right around there. His hits per 9 will probably go up, and his walks per 9 will probably go up as well. Like I said, he could be a very useful card. He was fun to use last year. The break on his curveball was fantastic, and his forkball was very hard to see. The next card, and I hope that this card is not in the game, is Louis Tiant. He throws a knuckleball, and that's the one reason why I don't want to see him in the game. But he was part of, I think he was a flawless BR run last year. So if you went 12-0 last year, you could get Louis Tiant. He was very, very hard to hit last year. I'm glad that not very many people had him last year, and if people have him again this year, it's going to be one of those players that if everybody can get him, we're going to see a lot of knuckleballs in the game. And right now, as the game currently stands, knuckleballs are not fun to hit. The other two guys that I think are more likely to hit the starting pitcher nods are Jack McDowell. Jack had multiple cards in last year's game and currently doesn't have any in 2018. I wasn't a big fan of his card, but he could still be very useful. Think of Don Sutton. He could be very similar to Don Sutton's card this year, without the screwball, though. He'll probably tie into the Nolan Ryan program. So he throws a four-seamer, split, a curveball, and the curveball last year had a lot of break on it, so it would start at your head and drop down at your toes. And he throws a two-seam fastball. Not exactly the best combination of pitches, and not exactly the most useful. And I think his hits per 9 are going to go up with the addition into Diamond Dynasty. And I think that he's probably going to be an overall of around 88. So it's not a bad card to have in the game. And the other card is Doug Drabek. So if we backtrack, Fergie Jenkins played for the Philadelphia Phillies, the Chicago Cubs, the Texas Rangers, and the Boston Red Sox. Jack McDowell played for the Chicago White Sox, the New York Yankees, the Cleveland Indians, and the Los Angeles Angels. Doug Drabek played for the Yankees, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Houston Astros, the Chicago White Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles. Doug Drabek had multiple cards in last year's game and currently doesn't have any in 2018. I wasn't a big fan of his cards last year, but they could be useful in 2018, similar to Jack Morris this year. His pitching repertoire is much better with four-seam fastball, slider, curveball, and sinker. I'd like to see if they would add a changeup to that. He could be very useful in the game. I think he'll probably tie into the Tom Seaver program. Now, in terms of relief pitchers, I think one of the relief pitchers is going to be Rollie Fingers. Rollie Fingers played for Oakland, San Diego, and Milwaukee. He had multiple cards in last year's game and currently doesn't have any in 2018. He was a very effective card even with the small pitching selection. So he throws just the sinker, the slider, and the fastball. And the sinker is very useful in this year's game. And the slider that he had last year had a ton of break on it. I think that he's going to be one of the programs. I'm not sure who he's going to tie into. I'm going to guess that he's going to tie into Billy Wagner at this point. And then the other relief pitcher is Dennis Eckersley. Dennis Eckersley played for the Cleveland Indians, the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago Cubs, the Oakland Athletics, and the St. Louis Cardinals. Once again, he had multiple cards in last year's game, both as a starter and a reliever. He currently doesn't have any in 2018. I really enjoyed using his hardware card last year to close out a few games late in the game's lifespan. He throws not exactly the best mix of pitches. It'd be interesting to see if they use his pitching repertoire that he had as a starter last year. Maybe include that curveball and maybe a changeup as well. But most likely we'll see what they have right here with the 4-seam fastball, the slider, and the 2-seam fastball. His hits per nine are probably going to go up, and his Ks per nine are going to go up when he gets added into Diamond Dynasty. His walks per nine will probably be well over 100, and his clutch and his control could be right around 100 as well. Now, when we get to catching, the first catcher that I think is most likely to get the nod is Johnny Bench. Now, this card could be an absolute game breaker for a lot of people that didn't really enjoy the Gary Carter card with his longer swing. But Mr. Johnny Bench, Mr. Ham Hands himself, he was a 99 overall flawless BR card last year. He's only played for the Cincinnati Reds his entire career, and I would love to see him made available for everyone to use in this year's game. We had rookie cards and Impact Veteran cards readily available last year, and he currently doesn't have any cards in the game right now. I think his power and his contact should go up a little bit, and then he's probably the best defensive catcher in the history of the game. He would be a lot of fun to use, especially his hardware card. The other catcher is possibly Yogi Berra. Currently, Yogi doesn't have any cards in the game, and it's a toss-up between Yogi and Johnny Bench as who gets the nod here. But either one of them would be pretty solid choices. Johnny Bench is going to have much better power numbers, but Yogi Berra is going to have good contact numbers. So, and his vision for Yogi is going to be much higher. We could see either one of them, and I think we'd be pretty happy with it. Now, for first base, we kind of got hinted that Frank Thomas would be in the game. Frank played for the White Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Oakland Athletics. We've kind of known for a while that Frank would be in the game. Whether or not he's going to be a career arc, that's going to be up to the SDS people, but I thoroughly believe that he's going to be a career arc. He'll be a nice and welcomed addition to the game, and he's currently not in the game in any capacity. His fielding has always been horrible, even when he was a rookie, his time with the White Sox. So he's not going to, save any games for you down there at first, but in this year's game, first base defense doesn't really matter. His hitting and his power should both be right around 100, if not more than that. The man is, one of the best hitters in the game at first base and of all time. He's not exactly going to light it up with his speed, but he'll be a welcomed addition, like I said. At second base, I think it's going to be Roberto Alomar. Roberto played for the Padres, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Cleveland Indians, the New York Mets, the Chicago White Sox, and he finished out his career with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was one of the best players to ever man the keystone position. He was a 99 overall World Series award from last year. I'd love to see him made available to everyone in the game. He had multiple cards in last year's game. He currently doesn't have any this year. And I think that his contact and his power are going to be very useful. I think his contact's going to be well over 90, and his power is going to be right around 70 for each of those spots. He's a switch hitter, and he can run. So I think his speed for his peak career is going to be in the 80s. And he's one of the best defensive best defensive second baseman of all time. His hitting, his discipline, and his clutch should all be right around that range. Since I have to switch over, we're going to do shortstop. Shortstop is going to be Barry Larkin, I think. It's either going to be Barry Larkin or Robin Yount. And when I switch over to the Boomers team, I'll show you Robin Yount's numbers. But Barry Larkin played his entire career for the Cincinnati Reds. He hit for power and contact, and he had speed, great speed, and great vision at the plate. He had multiple cards in last year's game. He currently doesn't have any cards in this year's game. And like I said, the other option that I considered is Robin Yount, but he has a card on the ticket counter, and I don't think any of the new career arcs are going to have cards already available in the game. Barry Larkin is one of those cards that had a ton of cards last year, from rookie to breakout to hardware. And I think that he's going to be a very valuable addition. He's going to be much better than the Hanley Ramirez card that you can currently get now. His contact and his power are both going to be up. He hits lefties a lot better than he hits righties, especially for power. And his vision is going to be right around 100, if not more. He was a very underrated defensive player as well. So I think those defensive numbers could go up as well as the speed numbers once he gets added into the game. Now I'm going to switch over to the expansion era Boomers to show you the other players that I had chosen for the game. And none of the pitchers on the staff. Bert Bylevin was somebody I considered, but he's already in the game, and so is Vida Blue. And I don't think anybody else on the staff doesn't already have a card. So, but in terms of position players, Robin Yount, who I just mentioned, is another possibility for a shortstop, but he already has a card in the game. But he had one of the best rewards cards last year. If you could go 12-0 in BR. His hitting and power were absolutely phenomenal, and then his defense and speed were very useful as well. So let's go to third base. Third base is going to be Mike Jack Schmidt, one of the greatest home run hitting third sackers in history. He had multiple cards last year. He played his entire career for the Philadelphia Phillies. He was a lot of fun to use last year. I think his career arc was leaked by SDS during the pre-launch streams. He currently doesn't have any cards in the game, and he's one of the best defensive third basemen of all time. Brooks Robinson is definitely above him, but Mike Schmidt was very good at third base for his entire career, and his power numbers should be absolutely incredible in this game. They should both be over 100. So he'll be a lot of fun to use. For left field, I think we're going to see Mr. Albert Belle. Albert Belle played his career for the Cleveland Indians, the Chicago White Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles. His 1995 card would absolutely be insane. He hit .319 with a 401 401 on-base percentage and a slugging percentage of .690, as he became the only man in MLB history to hit 50 doubles and 50 home runs in a season. He led the MLB in RBIs and extra base hits in the 90s and currently doesn't have any cards in the game. SDS presented him to us during the pre-launch streams. His contact and his power could both be right around 90 plus. I think his power is going to be over 100, and you could very well see his vision and discipline being up there as well. This card's going to be very highly rated. His defense isn't as good as what they have him here, but if they give him his defense like that, he's going to be an exceptionally useful card in this game that I think everyone's going to love to have. Now, for right field, it's most likely going to be Dave Winfield, if I can find him here. Dave Winfield played for the Padres, the New York Yankees, the Angels, the Blue Jays, the Indians, and the Minnesota Twins. He hit for power, average, and had some speed, and had an absolute cannon for an arm in right field. His 99 overall card last year was a must-get if you didn't mind the top spin swing. He has kind of a long swing, so that might affect you in this year's game. He had multiple cards last year, and currently doesn't have any in the game right now. Another player I considered was Al Kaline, but he already has a card in this game. But if we get a Dave Winfield, I think that his contact and his power numbers are all going to be very high. Power's probably going to be above 80 for each, and then his contact's going to be over 90. I think his clutch is going to get kicked up as well, and his defense out in right field is going to be diamond. So he's going to be an incredibly useful card for everybody. And I don't have any idea who could get center field. I've heard some rumors that Duke Snider is going to be the card, but my best guess at this point is Andre Dawson. Andre Dawson was a very popular card in last year's game. You had to unlock the Washington Nationals collection to get him. He was absolutely one of the best players, though. If you tried to pitch him high and outside, he hit it for a home run just about every time. His defense is impeccable. He could start in right field, but he started his career off in center field, so I'm hoping that they pick him for a center fielder. Unfortunately, he already has a card in the game that could be picked up with the set one packs, and all the other center field options already have cards in the game. If it's Andre Dawson, I'm thinking his contact and his power are both going to be elevated quite a bit for everybody, and I think that will be a very fun card to use for everybody in the game. I read all of my information on this off of an article I wrote today from Reddit, so if you go over there and you see my name, Predicting New Career Arcs, that's where you can get some of this written down information as well as you can use this video to make your investments in the souvenirs. But wish you the best of luck, and I hope that all these cards get released this Friday. If not, hopefully by the end of the month. And this should be a lot of fun getting these cards and using them for a little bit before all of the Immortals get unlocked. So take care, and I wish you the best of luck.